Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get together.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter, just like we are each and every single Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern or thereabouts, which means it is 2:30 Eastern or right now 2:45, Pacific, out here in the West Coast where I reside. John Saponaro out in Burbank, California, if you want to be super specific. And that means that my co-host Matt Ibanez holding things down back in New Jersey. Ibby, just 1 week away from doing this thing. We thought maybe it'd be a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, but things moved a little faster. So before we get into that part of it, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good, John. Obviously the baseball season ended, like you said, relatively quickly when it came to the World Series. And, shout out to the Dodgers for doing their thing. We had the week away. It was a nice week away, but at the same time, once we saw everything rolling as quickly as we did in terms of the content creation community and everyone's putting all their stuff out and getting excited about the crazy off season that could be ahead of us, I thought, let's take the 1 week, let's get back into it, and let's start pumping some stuff out because there's a lot to talk about. We covered some of it last time we were on here, but not a lot, and I think it's time to dive a little bit deeper. Obviously, some things have happened with the team in terms of potential rumors, and the qualifying offers went out, and obviously there's a lot going on with the big fish that is out there that we'll talk about, I'm sure. And for those of you that aren't aware, if you're on the Twitter side, go head on over to the YouTube side because there is a poll that I am running on the YouTube side asking a simple question because everyone else is asking, years and money. I have a simple question, and I want you to answer yes or no. Do you think Juan Soto is going to be a New York Met? Yes or no? That's it. I just want to get an idea of what the chat feels like. But other than all of that, John, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, that is good to know. Shout out to you. Shout out to everybody in the comments. Got a lot of folks here. A lot of our regulars from Jeff Cohen to Will White, Stanley Babbage. We've got Shay, Carlos Ortiz, Armand. I'm trying not to miss anybody. Charlie is here. Darren Rivera, Rosie. Did I say Carlos Ortiz? I'll say it again in case I didn't. Yeah. Aunt Rivera is here. Subway to Shay. CP in the mix. So many people already. Over 100 people watching live. And we love to see it. And yeah, you know what? It's one of those things, Ibby. CP summed it up. Stove Talk, my favorite. Our episodes, as I'm sure a lot of our fellow content creators like CP, like Ant, and these folks see in these situations this time of year, things kind of blow up. Viewership goes up because everybody likes to play GM. Playing GM is fun. Playing GM is interesting, especially when you're a team like the New York Mets are now in the Steve Cohen era. I don't even want to say David Stearns necessarily because the Mets were plenty active before David Stearns. Once Cohen took over, it became fun again. It's like when you play MLB The Show or whatever your favorite baseball or sports simulation is, you like to take over a team that's got a lot of salary cap space. It's a different kind of challenge if you take over the Oakland A's or now just the A's, just the Athletics, their 3-letter abbreviation down to ATH. It's a lot different if you take over a team like that. Your strategy has to be different. And the off seasons maybe not as fun, but when a team has a lot of money to spend A team has a lot of prospects. A team has a lot of trades they can make. A team has a GM or a president of baseball ops like David Stearns, who is savvy, who likes to make trades, who likes to be active. That's when this stuff gets super, super exciting. And so, like you said earlier in the chat, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, because we are live every Wednesday. The entire offseason, we'll have some guests coming up. Keith Blacknick with the QBC is going to be here with us in a couple weeks. We got Jerome, aka J Customs. He's going to be here with us in a couple weeks. Responsible for the OMG sign. And of course, shout out to him. OMG going into the Mets Hall of Fame. OMG going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So, just want to talk to him a little bit about the journey. It's not always the off-season talk each and every single week. Sometimes we got to talk about, giving credit where credit is due and talk to people about their parts of the fandom. Even have some flyers out to some, I would say, unique guests you would not expect. And of course, we're going to try to get our regular guests here in the off seasons, the Lord Rubinsons and the Will Salmons and, Aunt Rivera and Keefe and Carson and all the folks that you guys, have seen on the show
we gotta get CP on. We haven't on CP.
Gotta get CP. Yes, we gotta get CP. CP, if you're in the comments, we'll work it out with you later on off the air. But we'd love to have you there. Charlie saying sleep deprived, but I'm here for the moment. LGM, everybody remember to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you, John Ibby, Umbrella Sports. Thank you for giving us a shout out. Darren saying shout out to John and Ibby for all their outstanding work they do regarding the Mets. Really appreciate that. So Ibby, look, I'm not throwing shade at the Yankees for this. I really am not. It's not the time. The season's over. We have a lot of stuff to talk about with our New York Mets.
Yeah, we do.
But you and I said 2 weeks ago, hey, it's going to be our last show for a little while. We usually take off when the Mets season ends until after the World Series. And in years past, that has meant pretty early on, we take off and we miss 3 weeks, a month, 5 weeks of not doing the show because we don't cover other teams in the playoffs. We don't need to cover the World Series if the Mets aren't in there. But this time, the Mets make a deep run to the NLCS, and then you blink and the World Series is over. And just like that, you and I are back a week later, which I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
It's funny because we said in our last show, you like to take a little bit of an exhale after a long season like that. We really didn't have much because things got restarted and we needed to be here this week. Qualifying offers have been out. People have opted in, opted out of contracts, all that stuff. So, while it would have been nice, honestly, especially with me having just moved and, you still like kind of in starting of the year mode at school and everything, it would have been nice to have another week off, but I am happy to be back talking New York Mets.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, it's the best time of the year. Like I've always joked where it's like, it's crazy how like in season you would think as you're talking about the team, you would gain more people, but this is where we see our most growth throughout the year. It's when we get to have all these fun conversations and talk about rumors and conjecture and all the crazy happenings and the fake accounts and the people. Who do you trust? Who do you not? Remember, there's like 3 accounts you should really trust when it comes to news, but we still have fun with all the other ones as well. But yeah, it's a very exciting time, and our Mets are definitely going to be in lockstep with a lot of the big names that are out there, which is going to make this entire process for the next couple of months that much more fun. And more importantly, I think we're going to find out really about the biggest name amongst all of them probably within the next 4 weeks, because I think everyone knows that there's only so many teams that are going to be involved in that mix that I think Scott Boras knows. I think Juan Soto knows that, we're going to get those offers quickly. And, it's going to be interesting to see how the winter meetings pan out, if you will. But I do think he's going to have a team before it's all said and done, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, you know what? Before we get right into that conversation about Juan Soto, which is as good a place to start as any, I just want to jump into the comments really quick. Jeff Cohen says, "Oh, go ahead and throw some shade at the Yankees. We won't mind." And Rosie,
I don't know what you want to say.
Joe Kelly is sure throwing some shade at the Yankees, and then Armand saying, this show, and the chat have better fundamentals than the Yankees. So, all right, we'll leave it there. But that's all some really good comments. Ibby, look, I think there's one thing people need to realize when it comes to Juan Soto. I think you nailed it. We've seen it before with some other free agents in the past. Bryce Harper comes to mind. How long it took for Bryce Harper to finally latch onto a team, and how long it took, right, for him to be a part of the Phillies and to sign that deal.
It was such, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm just going to cut it real quick because we were talking in the Mets in our chat earlier today, and me and Keith and a couple of others were talking about, Soto contracts, long-term Harper. And I just mentioned that year when Harper was free, along with Machado going in at 26, it's crazy how the times are going to change. Yes, I think Soto is better, but how the times have changed in terms of potential money, because it almost feels like that year the baseball world and owners were against the idea and kind of like bucked at the trend of going huge on a player. Because everyone thought Harper was going to get an enormous contract, even bigger than what it actually was. And it almost feels like he settled in a way, and the Phils get a great player for his career now. And it's crazy how like that happened then, and now baseball is a lot more accepting to the idea of giving a guy potentially $600 million at 26 as well. So.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I think there are some differences. I love Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper might be my favorite player that's on a team that's not the Mets, that has never played for the Mets, right? And when you factor in he's played for two division rivals, that's high praise. I really like Bryce Harper, but I think rightfully so, going into his free agency, even though he was a 19-year-old phenom and essentially lived up to the hype, and he was 26 at the time of his free agency, which is about as young as you can possibly be, which is where Juan Soto finds himself, another 19-year-old phenom that comes up with the Washington Nationals, blah, 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 blah. But I think there were some legitimate concerns about Bryce Harper and where his game was. He was a big-time swing and miss guy. He was a guy who couldn't stay healthy, or at least as healthy as you would want him to, because he played a certain sort of way. And he was a guy who had, while he was great, some holes in his game. And I think people were a little afraid. Now, I think that was the wrong sentiment. I've often said if Steve Cohen bought the team a year earlier, Bryce Harper would be a Met. I think he was the perfect person. And maybe that means we don't get Lindor, and that would suck. But maybe we do get Lindor too. Who the hell knows how that works out? So I do love him as a player. I also think that when you look at Machado and Harper, both hitting the market on the same year, at the same age, one being right-handed, one being left-handed, one being a very reliable player in terms of staying on the field, at least for the most part in his career. And Machado also giving you plus defense at that point in his career, really at third base and even at shortstop. I know he took a little bit of a step back as a shortstop because he hadn't played there really at the major league level, except for that brief stint. But this is a guy who gave you a lot. So I think there was a lot of deliberation that needed to happen between those two guys, between a lot of teams. Teams were in the mix. Do we want a right-handed guy or a left-handed guy? Do we want an infielder or an outfielder? Do we want a guy who's known for his defense or a guy who's known more as an offensive player? There was a lot of debate that needed to be had. And then, oh, by the way, you were going to have to give somebody a massive contract, which, to your point, a lot of teams had shied away from for a very long time, even if the guy was in the prime of his career, which both of those guys were, and Juan Soto is. The difference now is that I think, one, Juan Soto is the target on the market, the shining star right now on the market. There is no Machado to his Harper, or, there is no other side of the coin in terms of player of that caliber at this age. A lot of the questions that we had about Soto, maybe from his 2 years in San Diego, kind of went away because he had a monster season with the Yankees. So I think he's fallen a little bit more into that kind of sure thing category. Whereas, again, Harper had some question marks around him and another player out on the market who was maybe as good as him. So I do think this is going to move quickly when you look at those two things and you look at the fact that there are not going to be that many teams in on him. I mean, Jeff Cohen jokes. Ibi Soto said he's open to all 30 teams. Of course, he's going to say that. And then according to Heyman from CP, there were 6 teams involved, and he even balks at that, CP. And I agree. There's not that many people that are going to be able to afford this contract. It's the Mets, it's the Yankees, and maybe it's the Dodgers. I don't know how the Dodgers do payroll limbo and logistics and move things around to make it happen. But until I see otherwise, I'm going to say that they're in the mix. And maybe you want to throw a surprise team in there like San Francisco, who's got money burning a hole in their pocket. But, I think it's really a 2-team race. I think if you wanted to expand it right now early on, maybe you could get it to 3, maybe you get it to 4. I think it's 4 teams or less. And I do think it's going to come down to the Mets and the Yankees. I don't think he's leaving New York, period, full stop. And I think we're going to know no later than the end of the winter meetings, maybe even before.
So that's literally a month from now, I believe. I think it's December 8th to the 11th. So yeah, I'm with you. I believe, and I think it was Jeff Passan who said that too. I agree with it. And if Passan's saying, I'm going to listen, talking about how he expects by,
1 second. Sorry to interrupt. There's another good one here. Killa saying the Phillies. The Phillies are trying to move some players. They're shopping Castellanos. They're shopping some other players. Maybe they are trying to get into the mix for Soto. So that's possible. You there, Abby?
I'm here. You got me? Just want to make sure you got me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No, I think that I'm with you in agreement that it's 3 teams, really. I would say 3. And I'm with Brian Killa there saying how the Phils can be in the mix as well, off of the frustration and anger that they came off of from losing not only to us, but just losing early in the. So that is. I know I keep on cutting out here. Sorry. That is something to look at, but I'm with you. I really think it's New York. I think it's the East Coast. I think he wants to be in this market. I think it's going to be just, a waving of the checkbooks, if you will. And, I'm not saying that the Yanks are just going to concede because the Mets did when it came to Judge. But at the same time, I just think that if the Mets really want the guy, this is legit. I said it 2 weeks ago. This is a legit blank check situation where I don't think that they can be denied. Like I really don't, because I still think that when it comes to the Yanks, until they actually do it, I won't believe it. And that being offer another huge contract to someone, but also I don't think that they would go. I don't think the Yanks would go the distance that the Dodgers did last year when we said the Mets got to go out there for Yamamoto and blow him away. And they did. They offered $325. And the Dodgers at that point didn't have to go past $325. They just had to match. And I had said that year, I don't think they're going past $275. And that's reportedly where they were. Then they ponied up the rest of the cash. He said, okay, thanks. You gave me what I wanted. Now I get to go to LA. Thank you so much. So but I don't see that as the situation here. If the Mets came out and opened up the talks and said, look, no matter what, okay, I don't care what anyone's offering you. We're going to offer you the most money. Like, it doesn't matter. So whatever they offer you, let us know, and we're going to beat it. I honestly believe if the Mets came out and said, look, we're going to give you 13 years for $624 million. That's $48 million a year to match that of, Ohtani's yearly, and have the most money in a contract in terms of today value, which would then also top Ohtani. I don't think anyone's beating them. I don't. And they could do that if they wanted to. The whole question that Mets fans have is, how does the rest of the offseason play out if they go that large on one player? That's what everyone's curiosity is about. But when it comes to the teams involved, I honestly think it's New York, and then maybe the Dodgers are going to be used as a stalking horse to drive money. I don't buy them as plausible. Maybe the Phils, I can give you that one. And maybe I'll even give you one more because they have no money on the books if they wanted to try and revisit for a come home, that being the Nats, because they're such a young team now and they could spend the money because they're so young. I'll give you that one, maybe, but I'm going 3, maybe 4 teams. That's it. So it's going to be figured out.
I tend to agree. I'm going to jump back into the comments. Keep the comments coming in with regards to this, where you think he's going to go and all that stuff. And obviously it's super early. We're not going to write anything down. We're not going to hold anybody to it, but it is an important discussion. I think it's a fun discussion. This one from Shay. It's New York versus New York. Phils are a nice story, but I don't see it. I would say that he's not wrong, but I would add the caveat here, Ibby. I think the Phillies are more of a threat than the Dodgers or the Giants, simply because when Soto left to go to the West Coast, he did not have his best years in San Diego. I'm not sure he wants to live out here on the West Coast. I think he wants to be on the East Coast, so he's closer to DR. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the Phillies, if they can move, the tricky part with the Phils is they're going to have to move players and contracts first in order to get that done. Now, if they can, I think they become a nice third team. I don't think that they're going to outbid the Mets or the Yankees, but I do think they get themselves into the mix. I do not think that Juan Soto, I think he's going to go to the highest bidder, but I don't think he's going to want to go to San Francisco. You know how long it takes to get from San Francisco to the DR? It's a long ass time. It's a long flight. You know, it's as far as you could go over that kind of, that distance. You know what I'm saying? So it's not great. So I think Shea is spot on with 1 point. And again, not to say that the other part of the point is wrong, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that, where there's some East Coast bias. Last couple of years, some of the players we've seen with Yamamoto and Shohei, and see more of a West Coast bias to want to be a little closer to try to be home to Japan if they ever wanted to go. I think now you're going to see a bit of an East Coast bias. The last time we saw that was maybe Trey Turner, right, who left the West Coast to come back and play for the Phillies. Killa saying, I think the Mets offer the largest contract, but as long as the Yankees are close, I think he stays. I disagree.
So do I.
I don't know what close means.
Brian, let us know what close means. Like, give me a number. Give me a number.
Here's the thing. The Mets... I think the Mets need to outbid everybody because I think that's what Soto wants. Now, I don't know if you want to talk semantics, Ibby. Look, we'll use the Yamamoto deal as the jumping off point. You said you didn't think the Dodgers would go over 275. The Mets offered him more money than everybody else. They took that offer to the Dodgers. The Dodgers matched it, and he went there. Now, if that same thing happens and the Yankees match an offer and he says, good, I'll stay, I'm going to be upset, but I'm going to understand how that works. But I think if the Mets, if Steve Cohen, if David Stearns truly want Soto, you need to learn from what happened with Yamamoto, and you need to make him an offer he cannot refuse. You need to make him an offer that the Yankees will not match. And if that means overspending by $50 million, I know we're talking about crazy dollar amounts here. I don't care. The world is a nightmare. Steve Cohen has $21 billion. I'd rather give some of it to Juan Soto so that I can enjoy watching my baseball team to the utmost. I don't care how much money he makes. If the Yankees offer him $600 million and the Mets have to offer him $700 million to get it done, dude, you could give Juan Soto stock in the team. I know that's not allowed in the bylaws. You could, though. I don't care. It's not my, in that sense, it's not my team. It doesn't matter to me if Juan Soto has part ownership of the Mets, all the A-Rod demands that he wanted when Steve Phillips was the GM of the Mets, the corner office and the private jet. Give it to him. Give it to him. I don't care. It's not my private jet. Give it to him. I want Juan Soto playing in Queens. So to me, I think you got to give him an offer that is just like the Yankees won't even dare.
I think that's why, if you open, I don't know how Boris would handle it. I'm sure he's going to just bounce around to every team and just try to keep on raising the money more and more. But I really think that if you put an opening offer that is already in such a high stratosphere that puts pressure, like a lot of pressure on other teams to already think about it, I think that puts you in a good spot, because clearly if you're opening with that, that means that you're willing to go even higher. So I do believe that the Mets would go to the highest and utmost, like the tippy top to acquire him. So that's why I think they should offer, open up and say, like, look, I know I said on here that he would get 546. That was before the playoffs started. I think that number's gone up a little bit. So if they opened up and said, look, no matter what, we're going to give you $600 million. If you start there, I think you have already put yourself well into the lead, because I do question. I am not shying away from the fact that I've been saying this for the longest time, probably since we started this show, that when it comes to the Yankees and when it comes to money and things like that, you have to show me. You have to show me that you're willing to take on yet another huge contract. And until Hal does that, I don't know if I can trust it. I knew he would do anything to keep Judge. That I understood. Legacy Yankee, couldn't let him go, not off the season that he had. And you could say, well, this, Juan Soto, you can't let him go off of the same season that he had. It's like,
it's different.
Not a legacy Yankee.
Yankee.
Was brought in to be a mercenary to help you get to a World Series and try to win a World Series.
Hey, it almost worked. It almost worked.
It almost worked. So one could say, how can you let that go? You got to keep him there. I don't believe. And I'll gladly eat crow if I have to. And if it happens that the Yankees offered, $600+ million and he stays, and it tops the Mets or it matches the Mets and he stays, I will eat crow 100%. But I really do not think that the Yanks will go to that end of the spending to keep him. I think they would pocket that money and try to reallocate in other areas that they need help. That's the way I think it would go. Plus, when you look at the books, and I'm always the guy that says follow the money, follow the money, follow the money with all teams, not just my own, all teams. I know that the Mets have $100 million less on the books from the years 2025 to 2030 in comparison to the Yankees. You could say it doesn't mean anything. It's the Yankees. They should be able to buy anybody. And you're right. They should, but they don't operate that way anymore. So I'm telling you, I have a hard time seeing them offer him a $600+ million contract. So that's why I feel the Mets have an advantage there when it comes to the money. And I don't think that it's going to be close, if you will, in terms of money, where he would say, I'll stay with the Yanks over the Mets. I don't think it will.
Shout out to all the people watching us live right now. Over 300 folks between YouTube and Twitter with eyes on us. We appreciate each and every single one of you. A lot of people active in the comments. Certainly not every single person is active in the comments, and that's all good. If you want to be a fly on the wall, Ibby and I will take you through as much of this as we possibly can. But of course, we love to hear from you. So at any point, go ahead and chime in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or on Twitter. Twitter used to have this weird feature where the comments didn't come in real time. Well, they do now. So that makes it a little bit easier. And if you're here for the first time, first of all, welcome. Like the video if you like what you're listening to and what you're seeing, and take a second to subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm, especially on YouTube, and we are still holding out. We have yeah, there you go. I was just gonna say it. Jeff Cohen, get the word out to subscribe. There, Ibby's holding it in his hand. It is an Edwin Diaz autographed baseball that we are going to give away to one lucky subscriber as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers. Ibby,
I will do it.
I don't know where we're at, but we're not as close as I'd like to be, and we got to get those numbers up. We're not giving that away. That is from Ibby's personal collection. Yeah. I said that I might sweeten the pot and give something away from my personal collection. A lot of my collection is on the wall behind me. You can only see one thing right now, but I've got a lot of good signed stuff. I might give away something from my collection, but we're going to have to get closer. We're going to have to get closer before
we're at 8:45 right now. We're still a ways away. We're at 8:45, and I'm hopeful that the hot stove season, and I'm going to try to get back into posting some shorts as well for the channel. I'm hoping that the hot stove season gets those numbers back up. But yeah, it's a promise that I will keep. Once we hit 1,000, Edwin Diaz ball is going out. So keep subbing, keep liking, keep subbing, spread the word till Let's Do Us Part.
Absolutely. Jump back into some of the other comments here. Killa said within $5 million a year is what he calls close. If the Mets lose Soto for $5 million a year, I will be very upset, regardless of the situation, Ibby. Because if you even here's the thing. Let me just say this.
So does that mean 60 million then? Like within 5 a year? Assuming if it was like a 12-year deal, does that mean 60 million? Is that what we're saying? Like,
I suppose, yeah.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would leave $60 million on the table.
I don't think he's going to leave $60 million on the table.
I don't think he would.
I also don't
every dollar.
I also don't think the Yankees are going to outbid the Mets by $60 million. I just don't. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it playing out that way. Because Shea says, and he almost lost Judge as it is, talking about Hal. He really did. I mean, like, the Yankees couldn't lose Judge, but they made it close. Aaron Judge said as much. They made it closer than it ever should have been.
Well, Hal closed it. Hal closed it because he gave him the extra year. He wanted the year. He gave him the extra year. So Hal gets that for closing it. But it's Cashman too. It's Cashman who's got to, who I'm sure has the number in his head, comes to the build in terms of what he wants to do for this team. I don't want to sit here and talk like I know the Yankees because I'm not a Yankee fan, but I look at things from afar, and I can say from afar, I think the Yanks are a little bit top heavy. I think that they could, go about spending money a bunch of different ways to better their team and still be where they were, the following years or the coming years, if you will, even if they lost Soto. But I understand Yankee fans also saying it's Juan Soto, you have to keep him. And I agree. The Yankees should do everything in their power to keep Juan Soto. But like I said, I have a hard time trusting Hal. I do.
I say this. Everybody knows the Mets have like $175 million coming off of their payroll from this year into next year. And that involves a lot of dead money players who aren't on the team, the Max Scherzers, the Justin Verlanders, hell, even the Omar Narvaez, the James McCanns of the world. The Yankees have some, what I would call it'd be bad contracts. I think that the, what the hell's his name? The pitcher that they have signed, not Garrett Cole, the other dude that they signed. Rodon. Yeah, Rodon is such a terrible contract. He should not have gotten that money. He's not that good. You know, they have to contend with that. I understand that's not a $300 million contract, but it's a lot. I understand they've been paying Giancarlo Stanton for a long time, and that deal is now, you know, fair market value relative to when it was signed. And I know he carried them to the World Series. He was tremendous in the playoffs, but he's a guy who's hurt every year. He's a guy that doesn't have a great season every year. He's a guy they still have to pay, you know, and then they have the massive contract out to Judge and the massive contract out to Cole. Right now, the Mets are paying Francisco Lindor and kind of sort of Brandon Nimmo, I guess. Kodai Senga's got a very normal deal. I would say Brandon Nimmo's deal is maybe slightly couple million above what his market value is.
Probably.
They're not really paying that many people. You know, if you want to say, okay, well, yeah, they signed Jeff McNeil. That's not a lot of money. You want to talk about Starling Marte. He's 1 year left. You know, these are not guys that are going to factor into whether or not you could sign Juan Soto if you're the richest team in the sport, the richest owner in the sport. Keith saying Cohen just brought over one of those humongous novelty checks to Soto's house. He should. That's how he should show up to the meeting if they take a meeting at his house. Just knock on the door like Publishers Clearinghouse. Jeff Cohen saying, is 500 million an insult? Now, I think when you phrase it like that, it would be absurd to say yes, right? Because $500 million is not insulting to anyone. It's life-changing money. It is earth-shatteringly a ton of money. But I think in this instance, and I saw some people reply to him in the comments saying kind of like, at this point it is. And maybe I would say at this point it is. You know, what did he turn down? 445?
He turned down, it was like he turned down 14 years, 440, but a majority of that money was deferred. But that's still crazy because you turned down all that money at like 22 going on 23 years old.
Right. And I would say that he has become a more complete version of what he is in the time that he has turned down that deal, especially from off this year with the Yankees. Again, couple down years in San Diego. By his, well, yeah, he's gotten worse as a fielder. That's fine. I don't give a shit. He's not being paid to be a right fielder. I don't care. But I think he's gotten better as a hitter. So I think he is worth more than that. And I think that when you look at his age and the difference and the fact that he bet on himself, I wouldn't say it's an insult, but I just think you have to resign yourself that the contract negotiations are going to start. If you don't want to say 600, at minimum 550. It's minimum $100 million more than what he turned down with the Nets. Minimum.
Yeah, I mean, if it depends on which team you are, but like maybe it's not enough in the end. But you know, if the Phils did try, as an example, if the Phils were there, if it was like the Red Sox or someone, and they were like, "We'll give you $500 million for 10 years," it's like, well, that you are offering the guy $50 million a year for a decade, so it's not like it's not a bad offer. But you know, in comparison to some of the other teams that are going to do all everything that it takes to keep him, I think you're definitely falling minimum $50 million short overall, if not $100+ million short overall.
Yeah, look, this comment from CP makes sense. I can't wrap my head around going above 50 million in AAV for Soto, to be honest. But I think they're not necessarily going to have to. I don't think they're going to have to. You outlined what it is. Like, see, if you look at it and you say 500 for 10, that's where you come up with the round numbers of $500 million. That's where you come up with 50 in AAV. It's going to be longer than 10. You're going to have Juan Soto on your team for the rest of his career. He's 26. It's probably going to be a 13 or 14-year deal. It's going to get him till he's 40 or just about 40 years old. So that is going to lower the AAV. Sure, it's going to make the length, or excuse me, of course, the length of the contract longer. It's going to make the total of the contract longer. That's how you're going to touch the 600 million mark, or maybe I don't think he's going to get 7, but whatever. That's how you're going to touch the 600 to 700 million threshold. But you're going to be sitting at this $48 million a year kind of mark to put him in real time today dollars, the highest paid player in terms of AAV in the sport. That's what you're looking at.
I just, the simple math. I think this comes down to a lot of chest beating from Scott Boras as well. I think he hates the fact that he does not have the number one baseball player in the world in terms of contract that belongs to Shohei Ohtani at the moment. And the 700 million is not the number that you have to hit because it's not real, and all the deferred money and real cost, all that stuff. So when it's all said and done, Juan Soto will have the highest contract in terms of today dollars. It will break $500+ million in terms of today dollars, because I don't think this is about deferred money. I know that there was a comment today with Scott Boras talking about deferred money, and basically it was saying like no deferred money. And I've been saying that I think this is going to be a straightforward type of deal. Not a lot of deferrals, might be some, but not a lot of deferrals. And I think you're looking at something where he's going to not only break the total today cost or value, I should say, of Ohtani. He's going to break what Ohtani makes on the yearly. And when you do the math, Ohtani makes about 48 million, I believe. I think it's 48 million when you break the whole thing down. I think that he's going to push. If he gets it, we'll see. I think Soto and Boras are going to push for 48 and change, like 48.1 and change. So
well, that's what I was
do that for 13 years. That's $624 million.
Exactly. And I was going to say, when you're talking about players of this ilk and contracts of this number, you don't really have to beat the deal by much, because the odds of another, this is not a case of resetting the market. You're talking about the top 0.001% of the top 1% in the major leagues already. You look at Francisco Lindor's deal, funny, as 341 check-in live in the show. Francisco Lindor wanted $341 million so that his AAV was like $100,000 more than what Fernando Tatis Jr. signed to set the market. Correct. And has anybody eclipsed that at shortstop yet? No. He wanted to be the highest paid shortstop in the game. The Mets agreed, and they obliged, and they did it. Now with Soto, he is the best player in baseball, or one of the best players in baseball offensively. He has a tremendous skill set that you could argue he is the best offensive player in baseball when you factor in his ability to hit for average, his ability to hit for power, and his ability to get on base, his tremendous eye. He knocks in a lot of runs, plays in the clutch. He has a all-time elite play in any era offensive skill set. That is not going to be easily beatable. He's also came up as a 19-year-old and has been great since the moment he got here. You're not going to reset this with a 26-year-old free agent who's going to be at the top of the market next year or the year after. So, if Ohtani's money is $48 million, you really only have to beat it by $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, something like that. You don't have to go insane to, oh my God, we got to beat this by 2 million, 5 million, 8 million. Like, no, it doesn't need to be that much. Here's a good question. I'm going to pose this to you. Actually, I'm going to bring up these 3 comments and kind of pose it to you as one question.
Yeah.
Here from Killa. You look at the Mets, though. Yes, Cohen should have bottomless pockets, but he has a bottom. I don't know what it is, but if you pay Soto, say, $55 million a year, they will be missing out on other talent because of it. Now, take the first part of that aside, because we already think it's not going to have to get up to 55 a year. But then he follows it up by asking, would the Mets be a better team if they signed Burns, Fried, Bregman, and either Alonso or Walker instead of Soto? And then Jose Lopez Moya says the Mets should make an effort to bring back this was not the one I wanted to bring up from him. He said the allotted money for Juan Soto should be used to re-sign Alonso, sign Corbin Burns, Santander, Tanner Scott, or Hoffman, and then trade for Garrett Crochet. So this is, both of these ideas are spreading the money around rather than going nuts for Soto. The only thing that I will say is counter to that. Look, am I going to be upset if the Mets sign, 6 players on the free agent market that are all high end? No. But Ibby, the Mets have $175 million coming off of their payroll. The Mets don't have a lot of long-term committed deals. If you just take this one comment from Jose, the Mets can sign, I've said this, and I will stand by this. The Mets could sign Alonso, Soto, and Burns if they wanted to. they don't have to, and I like Santander, but they don't have to settle for Santander. They can just sign Soto instead. The Mets have the money to do it. And it's not, it sounds insane, but it really isn't when you break it down in terms of AAV. So I don't think the Mets need to settle for less. I think they should try to go get Soto, and I think then they should go and get some of these other players anyway. I've already said the Mets need to get Soto and Alonso, period. That's where the offseason needs to start. So I don't think you need to worry about spreading the money around, because I think the Mets are going to have plenty of money to spend, and they're going to have plenty of ways, even on the trade market, to add pieces. They have to. They have a lot of free agents. So I don't think the Mets' pursuit of Soto affects them going in other places. I think it's singular. I think he is a great player, young, at the right time, that they can pay a boatload of money to. If he was 31, I could see you guys making that case. But at 26, I don't think it matters.
I think everyone looks at Soto and they're doing this entire breakdown, and I understand the idea of spreading the money around and everything. But when I look at it, the first thing I say is it's about making a statement. And I know that we talked on how Lindor was a statement for Cohen when he first came in, and he had to, say that things were going to change. Okay. Now, David Stearns comes in, and now he has the opportunity to get, what many could perceive as the quintessential, David Stearns type of player for a team, for his favorite team growing up, and taking on a Juan Soto, sorry, I'm hearing all the screaming here. Taking on a Juan Soto is, sorry, I'm losing it because of all the screaming in my home. I apologize. This is what it's like having children.
We all heard it, man. We all heard it. I was like, damn,
this
man.
Is what it's like.
This
is what it's like having. This is what it's like having children. So yes. Anyway, I do believe
he is. Apart from the price tag, I'm sorry, just to put you back on track. Apart from the price tag, Juan Soto is the quintessential David Stearns player. He does everything that David Stearns values from an offensive perspective, all in one package. The thing that you would say makes him not a quintessential Stearns player is simply because he's going to assign a boatload of money. And, if you go back to Stearns in Milwaukee, he couldn't sign deals like that.
Right.
But apart from that, he's the perfect player for him. Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to my point, but I also want to bring up Yo Elvis over here saying, God, I love how delusional Mets fans are. I would love to know what we're delusional about, Yo Elvis. I'm just curious so we can continue the conversation. So I'll give you some shine on that one. But the main reason why I think that Juan Soto is a focus for this team, and why I think that Stearns could go this route and then play to fill in the rest of the team how he chooses, is because I think a Juan Soto not only brings this team to another level, I think it's about bettering the players that you have on the team as well. And I think that when you look at this team from a youth standpoint, if you have a Juan Soto here at the top of your lineup with the likes of a Francisco Lindor, what that can do for a Mark Vientos in terms of his growth, what that can do for a Francisco Alvarez in terms of his growth. And we've talked about this before. You spend all this money on bigger end players. This is what the Dodgers do. You spend this money. You need your cheaper players who are talented. You need to maximize their cheapness, if you will, and try to create something over the years where you're not paying them a lot of money. So I think that a Soto presence on this team does wonders for other players, specifically the young players on this team, like Vientos, like Alvarez, and for anyone else that might make a difference, whether it's Acuna, whether it's Jet Williams, whether it's Drew Gilbert, whomever it may be. It lessens the load for those types of players so they can just go out there and be those guys. Last time we talked about this similar topic, you had mentioned Gavin Lux when it comes to the Dodgers. Gavin Lux, everyone thought he was going to be a superstar. He didn't end up becoming a superstar, but he doesn't have to be a superstar. He can just be a good ball player on a team that has Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, like all these good established hitters. Like, he doesn't have to be a superstar. That's the same thing here. So I think that that's where I am when it comes to looking at him from the entire perspective. And also, people worry about the whole outfielder DH. I also think that Soto is a player that's going to end up going to first base. Someone mentioned this on Twitter, and I had a back and forth with them, and I said, look at Soto and a long-term contract and all the money, and I say you can comp it to Miguel Cabrera going from third base to first base. You can comp it to Bryce Harper going from right field to first base. I think that that's the future. And when you have that type of scope, that allows you to say, okay, well, we have our limitations or whatever, but we see Soto at first base by the time he's 31 years old, which is why you could say, hey, Pete, we're going to offer you a 5-year deal because in 5 years we think Soto's going to be at first base. And then, that's how I'm looking at it. So there's a multitude of ways you can go about this.
And that's the thing.
And I agree with, I agree with everyone and their thoughts about spreading money. And whatever, David, I want this to be clear. I love Juan Soto. I would love Juan Soto to be on my team. I've said before, when Cohen got the team, I circled this year as the year because I said this is when Juan Soto's free. This is the guy you go and get no matter what. If Stearns has another plan and builds a team how everyone else is saying he will, I'm not going to bat an eye because no matter what, everything I say this offseason, I am always going to come back to the same thing. And that is, I trust David Stearns to do what he thinks is fit to make this team a championship team. That's it.
You know what? That's a great way to kind of end the first half as we hit the 45-minute mark, and just kind of further this conversation. We're not really going to switch gears because we're just going to continue talking about the free agent opportunities and options. But, this is a great comment from CP just saying #trust in Stearns. Following it up by saying Stearns confirming Boris's aggressive comments is music to my ears. Carlos Ortiz, just trust in Stearns. Yep, exactly. Furthering it on from Shay, CP saying, yes, sir. Talk your shit, Ibby. Because I think that's the thing we have to separate. I opened up this show talking about how this is a great time of year for baseball fans because everybody likes to put their GM cap on. Everybody loves to play the free agent market, the trade market. Everybody loves to play GM. And we are no different. I've loved doing that the entire time we've had this show. I've loved doing it since before we had a show. I've loved doing it since before you and I even knew each other. Yeah. And I know you love doing it too. But we do have to separate too that we are fans. We have this platform. We can give our opinions, but we all are fans. Everybody in the comments, they can give their opinions, but we're fans. So look, to go back to Jose's point or Killa's point from earlier, if the Mets decide to not get Soto and spread that money around and get Pete and Santander and Burns and Fried and Bregman and do all this stuff, am I going to be upset? No, because I actually think for the first time, the Mets, the first time in a very long time, the Mets have a GM/president of baseball ops who knows what he's doing, who sees big visions, who sees the future, and can actually assess talent in a meaningful way. So I'm not going to be upset if he goes in a different direction than what I would do. But I also think he would be insane to go in a different direction. Like, you don't look at somebody like Soto with his skill set at his age and all that stuff and balk at the price. That is an insane sentiment to do. So with that said, let's head into the break. There are a lot of you watching right now, over 430 folks across both platforms. We appreciate all of you. If you're here for the first time, you're like, what? There's a break. I don't want to watch the break. It's okay. It is a 30-second reset. We need it for some ads on the audio side of this show, so do not go anywhere. I would actually say if you're watching us on Twitter, the break is a perfect opportunity to switch over to the YouTube, especially if you're new, so you can like the video and you can subscribe to the video. If you're watching us on YouTube, maybe, hey, come up with a comment you want to throw out there, even if you're a little bit shy. If you're a first-time commenter, we're going to answer. We're going to interact with a lot of the comments. You've seen it. We get into as many of these as we possibly can. That said, quick break, and then we'll be right back talking more Mets, free agent, trade, qualifying offer, all things off-season with our New York Mets. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, all courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. We'll be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. We usually start at 5:30 Eastern or thereabouts. We started about 12 minutes late, I think, once we were all set up and ready to rock here today. That happens sometimes. I will wear it this time. That was on me. I have a new setup. If you guys aren't... if you couldn't tell, or if you're not familiar, if you're new to the show, I do have a new setup. I moved recently and I have an office and a podcasting place where I can hang out, and it is all good. So I had to get some extra things set up. Ibby was helping me work through some of the setup on my new mic and kind of getting everything situated. I want to make sure everything sounded good for you guys. I want to make sure everything was working properly. I did my Jets podcast yesterday, Ibby, and I didn't fix the tension arm right. And so like the mic kept sagging and I literally had to like hold it up for the entire hour and a half. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. I have to fix all of this. I have to make sure it all works because this mic needs to be set up. If I have to hold this here for an hour and a half, my fucking arm is going to fall off. So that said, if you've joined the show late, and you're like, oh, I missed some of it at the beginning, don't worry. This lives forever on our YouTube channel. That's why subscribing and watching us over there is the best way to make sure that you, one, never miss an opportunity to know when we're going live, and two, can go back and watch whatever you missed, or if you have to leave early, you can watch it later on, because this lives forever on that channel as soon as we are done with the broadcast. But it is not just that. It also drops as an audio show. So you can get this wherever it is you get your podcast: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all of those places and more. Usually no later than the morning after we record the live stream. Sometimes it's up within an hour or two of when we get the live stream. It's all according to how quickly Olivia can hook us up, and she does really great work, really fast work, but she's got a lot of things going on. She's a expecting mother, so she has a ton going on, plus her own other job. So shout out to her for always getting this stuff sorted and ready to rock. Ibby, before we get back into the conversation with the Mets, quick word from Independent Safes.
Of course, why not? Independent Safes, as always, are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes, fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit independentsafes.com today for security that stands strong. And as always, they're taking care of you. $99 or more, as you can see right here. $99, free shipping, independentsafes.com. Tell them Til Mets sent you. They'll hook it up. I don't think maybe I could put Scott Boras in a safe today. Maybe
I'd put Scott Boras in a safe anytime. I can't stand his corny ass fucking remarks. I know people who have been commenting on Twitter about it. People in our group chat have been talking about it. People in the comments here have been talking about it. Scott Boras is so fucking corny, dude. The people are saying it's a bear market, but I think it's the polar opposite. It's like a guy who tees up his own setups. It's like, dude, shut up. I hate that shit. He is so corny. He is so corny.
Some of them are pretty rough today. Some of them were pretty rough.
They're always rough, man. He's brutal. Keith saying, nice QBC Flyers. Yes, the Queens Baseball Convention is coming up soon. It's just about a month away. Ibby and I are going to be in the house. We're going to be doing our thing. December 7th, I believe, is the date. Over at the 4 Points Sheridan in Flushing. Yeah, Saturday, December 7th. So make sure you are there. And I think I said this to Keith yesterday, but I'll point it out again. If you notice, I've got one, I've got two, and then I've got a big glaring hole behind me for a new QBC flyer that I expect will get posted right there, which is why I left the space. I've got my whole wall decked out. I've got my autographed Keith Hernandez jersey. I've got my custom Jets jersey that the Jets gave to me a couple years ago. I've got some other great swag up on the wall, and I was like, you know what? I'm saving a spot because I know I'm going and hosting another QBC. I'm not leaving without that autograph flyer. So, and yeah, that's the cool part. Keith hooks it up, make sure that all the guests autograph the flyer for me as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully add a third one to the mix. Otherwise, Keith, it's all your fault. My wall is going to look really stupid because I've got a whole blank spot that is perfect. Absolutely perfect to hang another QBC flyer. CP saying a dedicated podcast room. That is the dream. Yes. CP, it's fantastic. I do share the office with my girlfriend. We have a dedicated office, but I podcast from it. She works from home some of the time, so she's got a desk over in the other area. She's not in here now. That would be super weird if she was working like on a meeting and I was over here doing my thing. But it's pretty well set up. I like it better than kind of working from a desk, which was my old setup. Being out on the couch and being able to chill a little bit and kind of having things just feeling a little bit more I don't know, chill. Yes, it felt a little uptight sitting at the desk. Stanley saying Soto can afford both. Cohen can afford both Soto and Alonso. I agree. Absolutely. Stevie Mack saying I put Yolvis in the independent safe. That's fair. Shay saying don't mess with his wall, Keith. And then Keith following it up by saying now I'm making sure he doesn't get one. Wow. That's you know what? That's fair. We lost Ibby. I think he had some issues with his connection, as happens sometimes with Ibby. We all know that Ibby does not have the best Wi-Fi down in the basement, which is his dedicated podcast area. So I'll jump into the comments and kind of address a few of them as we wait for Ibby to work his way back. Some of these go back to sort of the start of the show. Stanley saying we need to bring back Alonso and Manaea. They are two of the people that I would look to bring back almost immediately. They are very, very, very high on my list. Shay saying, I think we make a big signing pre-Soto, pre-Soto deciding either Manaea or Burns. I could see that being the case. Ibby, you didn't miss much. Happy to have you back. I'm just kind of running through some comments as we move the conversation a little bit past Soto, talk about some of the other openings that the Mets have. Chris Ram saying, I think we get Soto, lose Pete, and pass on Burns. CP said earlier, walk-off is pushing that Devin Williams to the Mets agenda. I'm kind of here for it. Would be a full circle moment. I would like that. I don't have any issue with that at all. Jose, I pulled this up by accident before. Mets should make an effort to bring back Manaea, Severino, Winker, Iglesias, and maybe take a flyer on Quintana. So he wants to, as the kids say, run it back. I disagree there. There's a lot of people there that I would not bring back, but listen, it worked really well, and I can't fault them for it, but it is not my preferred method to go to. Charlie saying, with the money coming off the books, this is the year to get a big free agent. That's Soto. Then add Pete, Manaea, and another starter. Next year, the free agent market does not look as good. Use the money next year to extend Alvarez and Vientos. I think that is a very, very good big picture outlook from Charlie. You have to understand where things are the following year, where things are 2 years from now with your own team, with the landscape of the league. And again, Soto is a singular talent. So I would go all in on him if you're ever going to go all in on anybody. And here's another good one. CP saying the beauty of it all, there's a ton of value to be had in the free agent reliever market on wonderful price points, as there always seems to be in the relief market. There's usually a lot of money to spread around. And then Stanley finally says, trade Jeff McNeil, which I agree with wholeheartedly. I would trade Jeff. Ibby, I know people have been talking about it in our group chat. Let's not spend a lot of time on Jeff McNeil. So let's just get out of the way.
Let's not. Please.
I don't think the Mets can bring back Jose Iglesias unless they trade Jeff McNeil, and I would rather have Jose Iglesias just based on vibes. He is also a better defensive player. Oh, by the way, he hit 340 for the Mets. I don't know if he's going to do that again, but no. I would rather have Jose Iglesias back than Jeff McNeil, knowing that Jet Williams is coming down the pipeline and Luis Angel Acuna is here and, can probably fill a lot of that void. Jeff McNeil feels like a Seattle Mariner. Jeff McNeil feels like a Los Angeles Angel of Anaheim. He feels like somebody who's not going to be on this team. I think Stearns is going to trade him. I do. I really do. I think he should. And I think people are going to get mad at this. I think if you have to eat money to trade Jeff McNeil, I think you should. I think the roster spot is more valuable than him being on the team.
With Jeff McNeil, the only way you're getting rid of him is if it's part of a deal that's trying to cancel money in a way. So my dream scenario would be, if they were to call Seattle, like everyone tends to do, because everyone thinks this guy just belongs in Seattle. If you called Seattle, you're like, okay, we'll give you McNeil. We'll give you as part of as a eating the money aspect, shorter amount of years and money going back to you. We'll also give you, pick of the litter when it comes to prospect, if you will. That being whether it was a Jet Williams or a Ryan Clifford or Drew Gilbert or anything like that, or one of the arms not named Brandon Sproat, and they were like, we're trying to get back the 4 years and $100 million that Luis Castillo has, like something like that. Like that's the only way that you are getting, yeah, not straight up, but that's the
straight up.
only
Why
not?
Wait, Keith, I left one out. McNeil could be a Cleveland Guardian. That's what he feels like to him.
He could, but just seeing him with that big gray bushy beard in Anaheim, that does make a lot of sense to me too. But no, I think that's the only way you're getting rid of Jeff McNeil, is if it's part of your packaging prospects with him as the shorter end of money to try to make up a little bit of cash, while taking back the entire contract of someone else, and not just a bum player. If you're trying to get back a good player, because Castillo still is a very durable arm and makes a lot of sense for this team. So that's kind of where I am when it comes to Jeff McNeil.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago when we eulogized the season and our very, very, very early outlook for the offseason. Rosie reacting to the comment I brought up earlier from Jose about running it back. Rosie saying, do not run it back. The Mets need higher end pitching and 2 impact bats if they bring Pete back. Ibby, you know where I feel with regards to this. It's not to pick on the comment at all from Jose, who's a great commenter of the show, great watcher, viewer of the show. But I think the Mets really only need to bring back Alonso and Manaea of all of those people. I think Manaea in the right rotation with what he's found and unlocked, if he's a 2A/3, I think the Mets have the makings of a really good rotation. Behind, take your pick. I don't care if it's Blake Snell. I don't care if it's Corbin Burns. Let's just say it's Burns. If you have Burns and then Senga and then Manaea, and that's your top 3, that looks very, very solid to me. So I think he is somebody they should really bring back. You know how I feel about bringing back Alonso. I think those are the 2 that have to be back. I told you that I would go the way of Iglesias only if you can make other moves. And I would also entertain bringing back Jesse Winker, because I think that he's got a swag that this team needs. But again, that would depend. Winker's not going to be an everyday player for me on the Mets. So, maybe you lose him. But the idea of bringing back all of these guys, some of them you just have to say thank you. Thanks for the memories. For me, that's Severino. I'm not giving him a long-term deal. I know they gave him the qualifying offer. If he accepts it, terrific. If he accepts it, that's great. And Severino's your 4 at 1 year, $20 million. I'll dance in the streets. But I don't trust Severino enough to give him a multi-year deal. And that's just, you got to just say thank you sometimes and let guys leave. Are you there? Oh, Ibby's gone.
I'm struggling over here.
Did you catch any of what I said?
Hello?
No, we got you loud and clear. We got Ibby.
Hello?
Yeah, no, you're here. You're absolutely here. You're frozen. You're kind of frozen. You're kind of not. It's not great. We got Keith saying it's going to sound horrible, but I think Iglesias was a flash in the pan. Winker, I think the Mets could use because of his fire. Senga, Manaea, Burns. Yeah, I do think I said this earlier online, and people gave me some flack for it. Keith, I said with Jose Iglesias, sometimes the best part about about catching lightning in a bottle is to know when to open the bottle and let it go again. And I think the best teams find the next version of Jose Iglesias. I've said that on this show before about other players in different positions. Now, it's a little different with Iglesias simply because of the vibes that he helped provide. But I think it's important to acknowledge that. I said it with Aaron Loop. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was early in the tenure of this show. And I said, Aaron Loop had a great year. You do not sign middle relievers off of the best years of their careers. And he went to LA, went to the Angels. He was okay. He was never great again. And he cashed out. And he should have cashed out. It's well within his rights to do that. But I think sometimes you have to let these guys go. So would I bring back Iglesias? Like I said, dominoes have to fall. First, Jeff McNeil, maybe even some others. But if Jeff McNeil is on the team, to me, with him and Acuna and Lindor, and it's just the glut of infielders you're going to have potentially with Jet Williams and who knows, Ronnie Mauricio finally getting to do baseball activities. There's no room. There's no room to bring back Jose Iglesias. And I love what he did. I love OMG. I thought it was, maybe the moment that saved the season. Really, truly. But I don't see it. I'll take this question while we wait for Ibby to get back from CP. You have to choose one, Snell for 5 years or Burns for 7. For me, Snell. I said something similar on Twitter the other day. I think Snell is going to be less money, and I'm not penny pinching. I already said I don't care. Steve Cohen wants to have a $500 million payroll. He can. It's not my money. I don't give a shit. It's not really going to change prices of the games. That's not how that works. So he can sign everybody. He can sign all these players for whatever dollar amount he wants. I don't care. Just from a team building perspective and trying to be reasonable and not play, MLB The Show or some kind of weird like online version of this fantasy baseball kind of shit. For me, if that's the option that I'm presented with, I will take Snell for 5, which would then be less money overall than I would Burns for 7. That's my personal take. If Ibby gets back here quick enough to answer this, and maybe I'll bring it up to him at the end of the show, even if he doesn't get back and we kind of move on. But to me, Snell is going to be the better option on a shorter deal. That's just how I feel about it, honestly. I'll keep it starred, and if Ibby works his way back in, get his opinion on that too, because I do think it's a worthwhile question. But for me, I'm going Snell every time. CP also saying, I know we talked about it earlier today. I'm buying into the Adames hype. Not going to lie. Dominoes have to fall for it to happen clearly, but man, guy has pop in his bat as well. I like Willy Adames. I think Willy Adames would be a really good player. The dominoes that would have to fall for me are probably, that means Pete is gone. Ibby is back. Ibby.
You got me?
Can you hear us? Yeah, we got you, man.
Here we go. Sorry about all that.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen. He's like Eric Bischoff. He's back. Better than ever. Okay, I'm done. Ibby. So
yes.
We'll go back to the other comment earlier, but this one from CP. He's buying into the Willy Adames hype.
Okay.
He said he's not going to lie. Dominoes have to fall for it to happen, but man, that guy has pop in his bat as well. I like Willy Adames. I think Willy Adames, if you put a gun to my head, is going to be playing shortstop for the Dodgers. I think that's how that's going to work. The Dodgers don't have a shortstop. They're going to need a shortstop. I think he's going to go to the Dodgers and play shortstop there. The dominoes that I think has to fall is, for some reason, the Mets don't re-sign Pete Alonso. Mark Vientos moves to first. And then you have an opening at third base, and that's where I could see the Mets signing Willy Adames. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't see it happening. And I would happily take him. I do think he's a good ball player. And I think he'll be a good third baseman. But I don't think – I think the domino that has to fall is the Mets do not retain Alonso and Vientos moves to first, which I don't know if either one of those is a foregone conclusion. Even if the Mets don't – like if the Mets don't get Alonso – and they sign Christian Walker to a 3-year deal, the Mets are not signing Willy Adames. It's not going to happen. So those two things have to happen in order for him to make sense for the Mets. What do you think?
I know me and CP were talking about this earlier today too, when this whole thing started coming about. And I was saying how last offseason I said on this show that I was big on the idea of Willy Adames. That was one of my, before we did our bold predictions, I was like kind of like gut calls. I was like, I could see Stearns trading for Willy Adames, especially when we weren't sure what we were going to get from third base at the start of the year, because we also weren't sure what the Brewers were going to be. And obviously, fast forward, he has an incredible year. Brewers are great. Mets find a third base, what have you. It's kind of all moot. But the idea of Vientos going to first and him playing third, I don't know if I buy into it. It's a possibility. A lot of things, like you said, have to fall into place. And I think that there are so many other moving parts for this offseason that need to be filled. I don't know if they're going to go about trying to maneuver it that way. So as much as I respect Willy Adames as a ball player, I think he fits as well. I think that there are other teams that make a lot of sense where he can also remain a shortstop. Like we said earlier in the show, the Giants have so much money burning a hole in their pocket. They have a shortstop need. Buster Posey came out and said that we are in the shortstop market. I think that they have the money. They need a bat, need some more offense. I think
sounds
it
so
makes a
weird
lot
to
of
me.
sense.
It sounds so
Buster
weird to
Posey?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buster
Buster
Posey
Posey.
came out and said we're in the shortstop market. I'm like, Buster Posey, isn't he still playing?
Is he the catcher?
Um,
Yeah. But that's
like,
kind of
wow.
where I am with that.
That's weird for a catcher to say. Yeah, I think CP kind of agrees with us. He says the other domino that has to fall is that Stearns has to accept him playing a brand new position. Like Armand said, a lot of hurdles. And that leads me into Armand's comment from just before that. He has not played third base. He played second in 2018 for Tampa for 10 games, 8 games started. You know, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's not a great sample size. You know, I don't need to read off everything there. You know, I think he's athletic enough to play second or third. I don't think the Mets need him as a second baseman. That's another a domino that would have to fall, right? Like, I just think between, again, Acuna, McNeil still being on the roster, what's going on with Ronnie Mauricio? Like, there has to be 2 to 3 to maybe 4 things to happen. And I just don't think we're ever going to see that when a team like the Dodgers, like the Giants, might just say, hey, Willie Adames, here's X amount of money for X amount of years to play shortstop. And he's going to go, cool. And he's going to sign it and he's going to pop over there. So, and I just saw you star this one. Aunt Rivera saying, we already have enough players trying to play out of position. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's just not fucking do that. Shout out to Ant, by the way. Ant, I don't know if you can notice, I'm going to pull your comment away. This mic that I have in front of me is the mic that you recommended I buy. And it's only my third show using it. And it is very, very good. So thank you for the recommendation. Shout out to Aunt Rivera, who has got a great, 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 great show. Subway to Shea. Ibby, this is the one that I was talking about when you were gone that I would like to bring up to your attention. I already gave my opinion, so I'm not going to rehash it. You also know where I stand on this because I posted something similar on Twitter. But CP said, question for both of you. If you could only choose one, Snell for 5 years or Burns for 7, where would you go?
Debut of the Snell Bell right there. We're going to be hearing a lot about Blake Snell because John loves Blake Snell. We lost the Belly Bell, so now we got to birth the Snell Bell.
He opted in, so there's no Belly Bell. But don't worry, guys. There's the Snell Bell for who the Snell tolls. He is back.
And I cannot play that song because obviously we'll get copyright and stricken there, so we're not going to do that. But if I've been sticking with this, and I know everyone automatically goes to Brewers, connections, Stearns, Burns. Is it possible that Corbin Burns ends up in New York? Yes. Would I trust David Stearns in choosing to give him the money and the years? Yes, because like I just said before, I trust David Stearns to make any call that he wants into building this team because I think he has the best interest for this team moving into the future. That being said, as a couch GM, like we all are, as we're all going to be playing this,
are you saying that because I'm sitting on a couch nowadays? Is that why you said that?
No,
hey,
I'm just
man.
No, I'm just saying in general, we all do it. But from my standpoint, I think that Stearns would be a lot more apt to giving a long-term contract to a bat as opposed to an arm, especially with how arms depreciate over the amount of long-term years that they get. One could say, yeah, well, when you look at Garrett Cole, he's pitching great for the Yanks. It's like, yeah, well, he had a scare this year too, and he just, he's going to get you still got him for another 4 years at $144+ million. And it's just like, is it going to be worth it in the end? Well, if you win, yeah, it'll be worth it. And he has had a great career for them to this point. So I would say he's earned his money, but I don't know if teams really want to bog themselves down. And I don't know if Stearns wants to by giving a 7 to 8 year type of deal, well north of $200+ million for a starting pitcher. I think he'd be more open to giving that to a bat as opposed to an arm. So I think that he would choose Snell. And I think if you're asking me who I think is a better pitcher, I think like if you're making me, I have to have like one start, I might choose Burns in that one. But if you're asking me years wise and money wise and building a team wise with everything else that I want to do, I'm probably picking Snell. I think I would in that case, and I think that is an attack that I could see the Mets going after. Don't know his stance in terms of East Coast, West Coast, if that truly is the thing. Does he want to stay out West? I don't know. But, I think that makes a lot more sense for the Mets, because you're not going to hear me say a lot on this show this offseason that the Mets are going to be hard after Burns, because I think that they're going to either go after a Snell or a Fried or trades for an arm as opposed to dishing out the big money for Burns. That's where my thought process is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the Mets, I mean, look, Stearns already said this, so I'm not breaking new ground when I say this. I think the Mets are going to continue to be into that market that they were with Manaea and Severino this year, trying to find a guy who's not a budget guy, but a guy who maybe is coming off of an injury or a guy who's coming off of ineffectiveness, because the Mets showed, like Stern said, that pitchers could come there and get healthy and get right and go earn money. So I think the Mets will be in that mode to fill out the back end of their rotation. I also think that the Mets, and look, the qualifying offer for Severino does throw a monkey wrench in those plans, because maybe he just takes it. Maybe he doesn't, but whatever. No such thing as a bad 1-year deal, even if it's $20 million for a pitcher. Give me that every single time. But I think that he also is going to use some of that strategy, not to be on the cheap, Ibby, but so that he doesn't have to invest long-term. And the reason why I bring that up is because forget about the money. Just think about the length of years. If you're talking about Corbin Burns for 7 years, you said it, starting pitchers depreciate. It's like buying a car. As soon as you take it off the lot, loses 50% of its value. Like, it is not a good spot to be in. So give me Snell on a shorter deal, or give me Fried, because you're saying, man, well, Fried, not exactly a workhorse, man. The guy's had some injury issues and stuff like that. Yeah, but maybe you can get Fried on a 2-year deal. Maybe you could get Fried on a 2-year deal and Snell on a 5-year deal. There's your 7 years, and maybe the dollar amount combines to what you would have paid Corbin Burns anyway. Now, I don't know. I'm just pulling those numbers out of my ass. Right. But I would rather have Snell, like you said, maybe Burns is the best pitcher of the three right now.
Yes.
But will he be in 2025? I don't know. Will he be in 2026? I have no idea.
Yeah, I know people are people are trying to make a big deal, or I don't want to make it seem like I'm making it the whole entire point, but it is something to look at when you see his, with how the cutter has gone for him over the last 3 years, and how the strikeout rate has been dropping the last 3 years. And it's things that you have to look at when you're looking at the overall numbers. And I'm sure that the smarter people than us within the Mets front office and David Stearns are looking at that as well. Does that play a big deal? We'll see, because I think every team is going to see these numbers and have their questions in terms of what this guy has to offer over the next 5, 6, 7+ years.
Yeah. Here's a good one from Carlos Ortiz. Are free agents going after the Mets instead, or the Mets going after free agents? Do you think the Mets have changed the narrative enough with Stearns? I know it's just 1 year and it's just one magical run to the NLCS. They haven't really, just to be fair, they have not shown that there's sustainability here. I think there is, but they haven't shown that because David Stearns just got here. But do you think, Ibby, the presence of Cohen plus the presence of Stearns now being the force in the front office, the deciding factor, the true president of baseball ops, and the year that the Mets had, and what we saw on a national stage from the leadership, right? A couple of years ago, it was, this team's rudderless ship. Lindor's a true leader now. Mark Vientos is, a young heartbeat kind of player. I know he had a bit of a down year, but Alvarez is a young heartbeat kind of player. Nimmo's a true leader. There's leaders on this team. I think the culture has shifted. I think the ownership represents a lot. I think the president of baseball ops represents a lot. Do you think the Mets have changed the narrative where free agents are now like, take me to the Mets? I want to go to the Mets.
I think that they are moving in the right direction. Like you said, I think it's hard to say off of 1 year, but I do think that it would be a less of a reluctancy I think we're moving in the point where it's like this year would be a lot less reluctant to just say, yeah, it's a lot of money, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll go play for the Mets. Like I think it's a lot more like, oh, the Mets are giving me that much. Like, yeah, I'll go there. Like I think we're moving in the right direction. And like I said, I think that if if you're saying like 2-3 years ago, if it was like, oh, so and so offered you 2 years, 20 mil, but the Mets offered you 3 years at 40 mil, you'd be like, all right, I'll take the money. Like I'm not big on New York or the Mets, but like I'll take the money. Like
Yeah.
I think that we're moving beyond that, where it's going to be like, oh, the Mets are in on me. What do they offer? Ooh, I think I could fit over. Like I think we're moving in the right direction. Maybe it's not 100% there, but well over 50% working towards where we want to be as a respected franchise. Yes.
Couple good comments here. Shay saying, I think there's a Beltran type effect, but for Juan Soto, I think he's the one that will get us to the I want to be a Met for free agents. I do think that would matter. I know the Mets have stars already, but I think that would be, look, Carlos Beltran.
He's the guy.
Yeah, let's not minimize the fact that when the Mets got Carlos Beltran, he was one of the biggest stars in baseball. And I think you could say that Juan Soto is one of the biggest stars in baseball. I understand that Lindor is also one of the biggest stars in baseball, but I do think that Juan Soto, Lindor came here and represented a different kind of change because he was the first guy Cohen got. And I don't know if this team was ready. I don't know if Lindor was ready to be the full-on leader that he has grown into and things like that. So I think that this would be a great waterfall effect. If they get Juan Soto, I think people are going to be like, oh shit, the Mets signed Juan Soto away from the Yankees. They're for real. Jump back in with a couple more comments. Stephanie is saying, I can't believe I forgot. It's Wednesday. Hi guys. Hi, Stephanie. We were supposed to be off for 2 weeks, but the Yankees didn't hold up their end of the bargain and the World Series was over in 11 minutes. And so me and Andy had to come back and do the show.
Another part with the Soto Beltran comps, Soto coming off of a big, postseason run. Beltran coming off of a big postseason run in Houston. Just another small little fun comp there. That's all.
Good point. Stevie Mac, always good for a couple comments. Stevie Mac said, "Snell you later," which I love. I said, "For whom the Snell tolls," and I think I like that one a lot. Ibby, he said, "The only name that you want to hear is Sonny Gray." That's it. You don't.
I love Sonny Gray. I know. If the Mets, I'm telling you right now, if he called, now the reason why I don't think that it will happen is because obviously the Mets chose to not be in on him because maybe they didn't want to sign him for the price point that the Cards ended up giving him. Granted, he only got $10 million, so it's a lot back ended on that deal after within the second and third year. So maybe he's just not someone that Stearns likes. But I am a big Sonny Gray guy, and I think he makes a lot of sense as a trade option in terms of the money that he's getting. Yeah, he's a little bit older. He's 34 going on 35, but he's been a damn good pitcher his entire career. Everyone always likes to go pick apart that Yankee stit, and Yankee fans like, oh, this guy's fucking terrible or whatever. But I'm like, every single stop, this guy has been a stud. And the one time he fails, it's in New York. But I'm not saying it's because of the New York spotlight. I'm saying it's because the Yankees tried to toy with his repertoire and make him something that he wasn't. And everyone else allowed him to be Sonny Gray. And that's why he thrived everywhere else and didn't thrive in New York. If the Mets called the Cards and said, look, we'll take on Sonny Gray, but is there a way you can toss in Ryan Helsley as well, and we'll sweeten the pot a little bit? We eat the whole contract and go from there. Like there's a lot of options, and this is what makes the offseason so much fun.
I totally agree with that. Keith said before when I started singing Eric Bischoff's music, he said, "Okay, now I think the three of us need to do a wrestling podcast." Ibby, I know we've talked about this a little bit. The Mets made qualifying offers to 3 players: Alonso, Manaea, Severino. Manaea is not going to accept his, obviously. Alonso's not going to accept his, obviously. Neither one of those players has any incentive to do so. I know I've said this a couple different times already, but Ant brought up, if Sevy takes the qualifying offer, would you guys be okay with that? Now, I kind of already said that I would be, because I think that, again, 1-year deal, I feel comfortable with Severino on a 1-year deal, even for $20 million. But I'm going to bring up this second comment as I toss it back to you. Stanley Babbage says, Nathan Eovaldi would be a good addition. So I'm not mad about Severino. I think they should offer him the QO. I think he's a coin flip whether or not he takes it. If he does take it, I'm fine, but that will limit their ability to go out and be a little bit more creative, because I already think that they are prioritizing bringing back Manaea and maybe going after a big pitcher, Burns, Fried, Snell, trade for Crochet, whatever you think it might be. So now all of a sudden your rotation is starting to get a little bit crowded. Now I know you're going to need a lot of guys, but my only issue with Severino taking the qualifying offer is maybe that just forces your hand and you have to have Severino rather than getting Eovaldi, rather than getting, I don't think they're going to get Walker Buehler, but Walker Buehler rather than, I think it just kind of makes their decision for them. But I also think that the Mets have already shown that they're okay with it, because if they weren't, they wouldn't have offered him the qualifying offer. Some guys you offer it to them because they're not going to take it, Manaea, Alonso, and some guys you offer it to him, you're like, hell, he might. And I think the Mets realize that Severino might take it. So, I think it's weird, but I'm not going to be upset. I would be okay if he picked it, if he accepts.
I would be fine with Sevy if he picked it up, or if he chose to stay and take the 1 year, $21 million. I think it's going to be hard for him. Would I be shocked if somebody gave him like a 2-year deal for $30 million? No, because there are a lot of teams that are still, pitcher hungry, and maybe he leaves and takes something like that instead. But when the qualifying offer is attached, it makes it a lot harder, especially for a guy like him, throwing a lot of innings this past year, most he's thrown ever, coming off of being, a guy that is seen as an injury risk, not very durable type over the previous 5 seasons. So there's a lot of questions there. So I think they offered that because I feel that they think that no matter what, because we have a lot of openings in this staff, we're going to have to, have a guy that's probably sprinkled in there that's on another 1 year type of deal. And they figured, hey, if he takes it, sure, why not? It's probably anywhere between 5 to 8 million more than what maybe another 1 year deal type would be for a pitcher within the market. But they might say, look, he's been here, he's done it, he knows what it's like. We know what he offers. Like, we have no problem paying the extra there to keep him, so we have some depth within this, because we can't forget this team has to be a 6-man rotation with Senga coming back. That's what it's going to be. So I think that that's why they offered it. I think they have an inkling, as to if he takes it, we're fine with it. And if he does, I'm fine with it too. I love the emotion that Sevy brings. I would love for him to stay. So I have no issue with him taking it if that's the route that he chooses to go.
I'm going to go with these 3 comments in a row. Ant saying, I think it's a win-win. He either comes back and is at the end of the rotation, or we get a pick. Carlos Ortiz says, you can never have enough pitching. And yes, I just want to clear up off of what I was saying. When I said the rotation's getting crowded, I just mean in terms of guys you're going to promise spots to, guys you're going to give guaranteed spots to on the major league roster, in the major league rotation, which is why I'll bring this comment up from Armand, who says they should take a flyer on Shane Bieber to a 2-year deal. He'll be back after the All-Star break, like what the Brewers did with Brandon Woodruff. See, I think Severino doesn't take the Mets out of contention for something like that, but Severino would take the Mets out of a guaranteed deal for somebody who might be in the rotation this year, even with a 6-man rotation. That's all I'm trying to say, is that there's a little bit of nuance to the situation. Another good one from Armand, just reminding everybody, Christian Scott will not be pitching at all this year as he recovers from Tommy John surgery. And no, Ant, Tyler McGill is not promised. He is not.
Please don't be.
He is not. Not. So, yeah. So you just have to be, I don't know, just prudent, I guess, just in your approach. And if Severino takes it, it closes some doors. I don't think it closes any doors towards the top of the rotation. I don't think it closes any doors towards spending big or bringing in 2 more pitchers. I just think it changes the dynamic a little bit, knowing that you've got a guy in your rotation. This is a fun one. I know we're going to leave soon, but this is a fun one from Darren. If the Mets get Soto and re-sign Pete, music to my ears. That would be, oh God, I'd be so happy. Do you put Soto batting second, Vientos third, and Pete fourth? Or do you put Soto behind Vientos and Pete?
So, sorry, I'm reading on my phone. It's a little bit smaller. So, if the Mets get Soto, re-sign
Mets
Pete, do
sign
you put
Soto-
Soto batting second, Vientos third, and Pete fourth, or do you put Soto behind Vientos? Or as I know we're putting the cart before the horse here, but
I know it's fun though.
it would be, in my opinion, it's Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Alonso. That's the way I would go.
Yes,
That's
the only thing I would change about it is you could do Lindor, Vientos, Soto, Alonso. You could just swap those two.
You could.
I just think it would. I don't think you're gonna. It really just depends on what guys are giving you at the time. And where things sit. Yeah, lineup bingo in November. Gotta love it. Ibby, we just hit 501 live viewers.
Hey, how about it
right now? And shout out to each and every single one of you. I know I said it a couple times already, but
like and sub.
This is great. Yeah, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, do all that fun stuff.
We're Follow us on Twitter. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, we're gonna get out of here in a couple minutes, but still plenty of time to talk with us. Not only here today, but next week when we go live at 5:30 Eastern every Wednesday. That's where you will find us. You can follow us on Twitter at Til Mets Do Us Part, on Instagram at Til Mets Do Us Part. You can find me at John Saponaro. You can find my co-host at Poison_Ibby, and subscribe to the channel here. Do all that fun stuff. Maybe this is kind of a good way, this comment from Ant, to spend our final thoughts, because I do think, first of all, okay, sorry. Fuck off, Ant. 5:45 next Wednesday. Fuck off. Yo, this guy Ant, okay, I give him credit. I shout out his show. I say thanks for recommending this mic. I admit that setting up the mic was part of the problem of why I was late. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. Oh God, this is a good comment. Maybe. Okay, this one really quick, just because I like this. If the Mets don't sign Pete, I like Gold Glove winner Carlos Santana on a 1-year deal. He hit 23 home runs, 71 RBIs, and had a 2.5 WAR. Ibby, I know he's old as shit.
39.
I would rather have Carlos Santana on a 1-year deal than Christian Walker on a 3 to 4 or 5-year deal if Alonso's out the door. I would take the 39-year-old. I would.
Yeah, I think
I don't trust Christian Walker at all.
I like Christian Walker. I think he's a good ball player, but like we've talked about before, we're curious about him outside of Arizona and what he would be elsewhere. A little bit older, but also how would he handle New York, all this type of stuff. But I would agree with that. I mean, I would be curious to see what other moves are done, because if Pete is out the door and you're settling for Santana at first, yes, those numbers are good. Will they look? Minnesota, right? Minnesota has its fair share when it comes to offensive production. With that transfer, I would have to look at his Savant page. I'm not sure how those numbers would transfer to City. But if you're losing Pete and settling on a Santana, how are you filling out the rest of the lineup? That would be my biggest curiosity. But I'm with you with the overall idea of give me the 1-year guy as opposed to locking in a 34-year-old or whatever, 33, whatever Walker is.
I think he's going to be
a longer-term deal.
I think Christian Walker will be 34 when the season starts, or like right after. Johnny Boy saying, I'd rather have Carlos Santana, the musician, and let him rock with Iglesias. Okay, so here's the comment that I had up from Ant. Mets about to go 09 Yankees on this offseason. Like the great philosopher Bart Scott once said, can't wait. Ibby, I know we talked about it a little bit, but not really, because this is our first show of the offseason. We talked a little bit of it during the playoffs as we kind of looked slightly ahead, but we had more pressing things at hand. 2 weeks ago, we spent a little bit more time eulogizing the season than talking full offseason. So, without exaggeration, I think that Ant is spot on. And I've said this to you privately. I think the Mets are going to have one of those off seasons. In 2009, the Yankees signed CC Sabathia, AJ Burnett, and Mark Teixeira. I think that's the kind of off season you can expect from the Mets. That's why I say it's going to be Soto, it's going to be Alonso, and it's going to be a pitcher Fried, Snell, Burns, whatever. I think it's that. And they're going to get more, but I think there's going to be 3 names where you're like, whoa, is this the Mets? Is this real life? Am I watching this? Like anybody who's been a Mets fan, I'm 38. So, 1986, anybody who's been a Mets fan through, let's say 1990, I think this offseason is really going to blow your mind. I do. I think Ant's right.
I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I always like to remain as even keel as I can, but I do love the premise that Ant presents with saying it could be like the 09 offseason, and I do think it can. I'm of the thought process, coming back to the idea more of your original thought for the longest time, which was Soto and Alonso. I think that in itself is a lot of money. And I think Soto and Alonso does make sense. I would pose it as, I wouldn't be shocked if this team went Soto, Alonso, retains Manaea, and then makes a trade for another type of pitcher, whether it's the Crochet of the world, whether it's a Gray, whether it's a Luis Castillo, like whoever. Like, I think that's the area we could. Oh, you got dirt here, Key? You got dirt here? I'm curious looking at that post. But I think that is something that could definitely happen because it's a proper allocation of money. If you went Soto, Alonso, Manaea, and then made a trade to take on a much easier contract to digest, whether it was trading for and extending a Crochet or a Gray or a Castillo, like all of that makes a lot of sense from a money perspective. I know we're talking like money doesn't matter, but that's still a lot of money spent and goes along with the idea of that 09 season of the Yanks spending it to go all in to try to win, which they ultimately did. Like, I could see that, and I think it could very well be what I said, that being Soto, Alonso, retain Manaea, and then trade for another arm. Like, I could definitely see that as something. Yes, I know Mets fans that there are a lot of other avenues that this team still needs to fill. A lot of people are like, what about the defense? What goes on in center field? What about the bullpen? I'm well aware of all of that, but I still think big picture moves can still happen. And that's why you have Stearns, who can then fill in the margins to make things work on the cheap in certain areas. You just want to make sure he takes care of the need areas with those stars. Still need pitching, definitely. You need at least 2 arms. You got to get 2, and I think he will. That makes sense to protect this rotation, so you have the horses that you need towards the end. You got to get those 2 arms, but I do think that what I laid out could very well happen, and that goes hand in hand with Ant's idea of the 09 season. Soto, Alonso, retain Manaea, and make a trade for a big arm. I think that it definitely happened.
Keith saying Soto, Alonso, Manaea, Crochet would be very nice. I totally agree. Quick reminder, Stevie Mac, 32 days until the winter meetings. Fast approaching. Alonso for Thanksgiving and Soto and a pitcher on Christmas is going to hit so hard from Aunt Rivera. And then Keith saying from, should shout out, by the way, is it Keith or is it Key? Who's here?
I'm not sure. I mean, the one that was posted before said it was Key. So if it's Key, what up,
bad.
Key? Good to see you, brother.
Shit, my bad, Key. I see it now.
Okay.
I thought that's my bad, Key. I keep saying Keith. Of course, they have a great show together, which is why I wanted to shout out the show, the Shea and Sons podcast. So Key is here with us right now. Does the Crochet rumor tell us a decent amount of the prospects might find new minor league system next year, being that they aren't Stearns guys? I did not hear the rumor, Ibby. I don't know if this is something that came out when you and I were already recording, or if it just missed me today.
Key, remind us if this is the one that was being talked about on the Buster Olney and Jeff Passan podcast, where they were mentioning Crochet and they said the Mets could be in the mix. If something else came out, please let us know. But that's the one that I remember seeing. And look, it makes a lot of sense to be involved. I still think that there are other teams that have better systems that could land him. But, sometimes beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah.
He's saying it's the one with Buster Posey. Mr. Only.
Buster Posey again. So I think that it's definitely possible to see some of these guys find new homes, but I think that Crochet is a hot commodity for a lot of teams and makes a lot of sense. Like I said this during the trade season that just passed, the deadline. I thought that Crochet made a ton of sense for the Orioles, and he still does. And they have a loaded system where they could easily offer just 2 guys that tops anyone else's offers, even if they offer like 4 guys. So it really depends on who's in the mix. So I think that the Mets would have a hard time. But if the Sox say, hey, we like Drew Gilbert and Jet Williams and Blade Tidwell, it's like I wouldn't be shocked if they said, okay, take him, and then we'll take the guy. Like I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I would start every offer with Brett Beatty and Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, a lot of hang-ups. I don't think so. No
yeah,
thanks.
I call.
No thanks.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, Ibby? This is John from Brooklyn.
Ron Cockama?
I think the Mets. I think the Mets should trade for Luis Robert Jr. and Garrett Crochet. I'll give them Jeff McNeil. I'll give him what's the guy? Batty. What's his name? Batty. I'll give him, and then I'll throw in Starlin Marte. Why not? Who says no? I hang up and listen. Oh man, it's fucking terrible. And honestly, though, this is true. Jeff McNeil would be a great White Sox player. Jeff McNeil.
You're basically picking every boring team. He would look great. He probably would. He probably would.
Yeah,
that gray bushy beard.
Jeff McNeil looks like he could have played on the. Listen, I know he's got long hair now and a beard or whatever. Jeff McNeil, if you shave him down, he looks like he would have played on the fucking 1919 Black Sox. He's the same kind of hitter. Just slap the ball over the shortstop's head. He would have hit 480 that year. He would have been involved.
Cursing everybody.
He would have been cursing everybody out low key. Brutal. He looks terrible. God, he's awful. He's so bad. Jeff McNeil looks like the kind of player that would be terrific before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. If you know what I'm talking about. That's the kind of player Jeff McNeil is. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Key saying, I'll hang up and listen.
Jeff McNeil being scouted by Branch Rickey. I could definitely see it. Oh
yeah,
my God.
Absolutely. Okay. Ibby, is there anything we didn't get to that's on the crawl or that you want to talk about that we kind of missed, didn't specifically say before we get out here? Just quick 2 minutes.
No, not really. We've been here for an hour and 40 so far. Apologies to everyone for the technical difficulties. Obviously, my computer wasn't ready for 500 plus people, and my Wi-Fi just crapped out on me. But hopefully it gets used to moving forward if we're going to have this much of a busy crowd. Appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for checking in with us. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be here every single Wednesday moving forward. Like I said, I'm going to try to put some shorts stuff as well to keep things rolling on the channel with ideas and things of that nature, because it's always fun during the offseason with free agency and trades and all that good stuff. In terms of our Mets, the only thing I'll say is Sean Manaea. That's been a big topic. I don't know if you talked about it when I was cutting in and out. The only thing I wanted to say on Sean Manaea is I know Boris said his piece today on him and what have you. I still don't think he's going to get that big of a contract, mainly because I think people are worried about the overall work of his entire resume, I should say, and also the fact that he's coming off of a 190 pitch season. I think there's going to be a lot of worries about what he's going to provide in the short term in terms of how he's going to bounce back from that. So I think that that's going to affect it a little bit. So when we talk about Sean Manaea, in my opinion, I think you're thinking more along the lines of 3 years, $70-ish million, $70-ish million. I think that's kind of where you are. Could somebody go a 4th year and push it into the 90s? Yes, that's possible. And if that's the case, thank you so much, Sean. I loved you for the year that you were here. Go get your bag. But I think that if it's in the 3 years, 70-ish million, I think he will come back and be a Met. That's all I want to say on that.
Let me ask you a question really quick. Is the 4th year more about the money or more about the 4th year? So I'll pose it to you this way. If the Mets have a chance to sign Sean Manaea for 4 years, $80 million, split the diff right in between money-wise, would you do that deal?
I think for me, I think it's the years.
Okay.
I think it is. I think it's the years for me. I think 3 years is the perfect landing spot. I think that the fourth year could be make or break, but I think with Stearns, he'll probably say, "Thank you, but I'm going to go and find the next Sean Manaea." That's why I posed it on the thumbnail as re-up or I'm sorry, I put extend or new model. I think there's an avenue for him to extend and stay here as a Met on the 3 years. But if it goes beyond that, I think Stearns is going to say thank you, but I'm going to go find the next version of you.
I'm going to add a word here to Charlie's question or comment. 3 years and an option. 3 years and a club option, not a player option. Would you do that?
Club option, yes.
Player option, no. Would you do it? Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I would
and
do.
Yeah, mutual options are fucking weird and nobody's doing that. So, I'll say this. I'll just to be fair, my high water mark for Manaea would be like, I don't like the years either, would be like 4 for 80. So just to answer my own question, I would like begrudgingly sign that deal, but I wouldn't sign anything more than that on a 4-year deal. I actually think that you're right. I would be more inclined, if I'm Stearns, to offer him more money over 3 to sweeten the deal. Like, so if he's like, hey, if the Mets are like, hey, let's do 3 for 65, and Manaea's like, oh, I want 4 for that same AAV, I would come back and be like, what if we did 3 for 75? You know what I mean? I would just offer him more money over the shorter term. That like try doing it that way. I think I'd rather be on the hook for more money and less years when it comes to Sean Manaea.
I think when it comes to it overall, I think people are going to be very shocked. Like I think when it's all said and done, like everyone's talking like, oh, he's going to get at this much. I'm like, guys, I really don't think you've been watching the pitching market over the last handful of years. I don't think he's going to get that much. So I'm still going to say, like, I'm expecting it to be in the 60s to high 70s total. 3, maybe 4 years. Whoever gives, put it this way, if someone offers a legit 4th year, that's where he's going. Like cut and dry, that's it. That's where he's going to end up going. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't.
I agree. Do you think he would, this is the famous question, do you think he would take slightly less money to stay with the Mets?
If the Mets offered 3 years and $70 million or 3 years, $75 million or along those lines, what we just said, I think he stays a Met. I do.
Okay. What if he has a 4-year deal on the table? Do you think he takes 3 to stay with the Mets?
375 versus 4 what?
I don't
depends. It depends on the money that we're
82.
Stays with the Mets.
You think so? I think so too. I don't think the extra year and the extra, whatever, $6-7 million is the thing that gets him to walk. I don't. I do think he truly liked his time here. I'll just bring this one up. We didn't talk about this. The Mets did not pick up the option on Phil Maton, which
could still come back.
Right. When he first came over, the way he was pitching in the regular season seemed like a no-brainer that you should pick up that option. I know $7.5 million is a hefty price tag for a reliever, but it seemed like, man, this guy, if he's going to pitch to a 1.4 ERA or whatever it was, 1.6, wow, keep this guy, just get it sorted. It's 1 year. Who cares? He pitched so badly in the postseason that I think it made picking up that option almost impossible. But yes, you're right. He could still come back on a lesser deal. I think he probably will. Let me say this.
It's possible. It's possible.
I think it's possible. I don't think them declining the option takes them out of the Phil Maton, race. I think they could still bring him back on a small dollar amount, but I think it's very clear, Ibby.
I think it's more of a crawl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I almost said sweepstakes, and I was like, that's worse. He's like fucking he's like supermarket sweep. No, I think they're still in on it with him, but I think it's going to be like later on in the offseason, if he's still out there, maybe you bring him back for like half of what he was going to get, $4.5 million, $3.5 million, something like that. I could see that being the case. I mean, look, there's a chance you could have Devin Williams as your setup man for like $10 million. Are you paying Phil Maton 7.5 when you could have Devin Williams? I don't think so.
No, of course not. No.
There is a report the Astros have had internal discussions to trade Ryan Presley. He will be making $14 million and has a no trade clause. That's a lot of money, Ibby.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I don't know.
I
I think he likes working within those margins in the bullpen.
I think so too. I could see the only guy I could see it's because of familiarity. It's because you would only have a 1-year commitment. The way it works is Devin Williams, I think. Right? Because the way Devin Williams, the option was declined. So now they have, right. Do they have to buy him out or can they trade the deal?
For who?
With Milwaukee, with the Devin Williams situation. I know they declined. They didn't pick up whatever option. So do they have to buy him out or can they work a trade with him?
They could work a trade with him. I think they could work a trade with him and they would take him at that price point of arbitration, right? I think that's what it is.
Yes. Okay, that's what it is. Thank you. I knew there was a quirky variable. Thank you for throwing that out there. Armand. Yes. So he's projected to make $8 or $9 million via arbitration. I think this is his final year of arbitration, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's what it is. So they can trade him. So look, if you're saying, oh, Ryan Presley, but he's making $14 million. Well, if Devin Williams is available on a 1-year commitment for 8 to 9, even if it's on the higher end, even if it's 10, again, you're not doing
Williams.
You're taking Williams. You're certainly not going to pay Phil Maton 7.5 if you can get this guy for 9 or 10 on the high end. So, I think there's a chance too, especially because look, I don't want to say that the Mets are going to get every person that's ever been through Milwaukee, but Stearns knows Devin Williams and he knows if he's going to be a good value at that number. So I think it's possible. I do think that's one that's a little interesting to me. Armand says, I looked this stuff up at work because I have nothing better to do.
And I appreciate you, Armand, because Armand keeps me up to date with a lot of stuff, especially when I'm at work. I always get messages from Armand with all this updated stuff. So I appreciate you keeping me in the loop as well, my friend. One thing I do want to put out there, I did put out a poll in the chat on the YouTube side. Once again, if you haven't liked the video, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We appreciate each and every one of you. The question was a simple one. Will Juan Soto be a New York Met? 69 votes have been cast and 74% of you say yes, while 26% of you say no. So Mets fans that joined Til Mets Do Us Part are feeling pretty good when it comes to the idea of Juan Soto wearing the orange and blue.
I heard one of the people that said yes on that poll was Scott Boras. Is there any truth to that?
I'd have to call up my sources and find out if that was a true story.
Ibby, this has been a lot of fun. I know
Always.
we ideally wanted 2 weeks off. It would have made everybody's life easier, but like I said, Yankees didn't hold up their end of the bargain, so we're back here doing what we love to do, and I'm happy. I'm happy to be back. It's nice to be in the new digs set up. I don't have boxes all over my apartment. I've got the new mic, thanks to Aunt Rivera. Appreciate that.
500 plus people joining us. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think the high water mark was like 531, which we appreciate very, very much. It's a good time to get out of here. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 p.m. here out in Los Angeles. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez. We are live with Til Mets Do Us Part every single week, all courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. Shout out to John Minconi. If you missed any of the show, do not worry. If you're subscribed, if you've got notifications on, you will never miss the opportunity to see us go live on YouTube and become a full-fledged participant in the show. And you also know, hey, there was an episode I missed today, and I could jump in tonight and I can watch it because God knows there are no Mets games on for the next few months, so it's not going to interfere with your nightly routine. You can watch any of what you missed on our YouTube channel forever and ever and ever, or you can wait till tomorrow morning and you can take us with you as an audio show wherever your day takes you, on your way to work, on your way to school, at the gym, on a run, on a walk. It does not matter. Like it with a fox, like it in a box. It does not matter. We are here for you guys the entire step of the way. Anyway, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you next week. Peace.